They reopened a haunted church and unleashed hell. Some stories are meant to stay buried. For over a century, the legend of the Black Vale Church was just that, a terrifying campfire tale meant to keep people out. They said the church was a tomb, sealed and silent after its entire congregation of 127 souls vanished into thin air. The evil that took them was supposedly locked inside, buried with the church's secrets. They were wrong. According to this story, a team of investigators broke that seal in 2024. They weren't ready for what was waiting for them in the pews. What follows is the narrative pieced together from their alleged final recordings, a story of how they might have unleashed hell itself. Section 1. The Legend of the Lost Congregation. The story begins deep in the forests of northern Maine, in a place you won't find on any map. It's there, the legend says, that you'll find a monument to an unspeakable tragedy, the Black Vale Church. Built in the mid-1800s, its Gothic spires claw at a perpetually gray sky, its stone stained black by decades of harsh weather and something far more sinister. For 50 years, it served a small, isolated community. That all changed in 1892 with the arrival of Father Alistair Finch. Now, Finch wasn't your typical priest. He'd been excommunicated from Boston for sermons that bordered on heresy, and for his obsession with forbidden, pre-Christian rituals. In the seclusion of the woods, he found a new and willing flock, 127 people who became mesmerized by his promises of touching the face of God, of peeling back the veil between our world and the next. Locals who steered clear of the church whispered of strange, chanting songs that echoed through the trees at night. They spoke of a suffocating darkness that seemed to cling to the church grounds. The legend says that on Halloween night, 1892, Father Finch summoned his entire congregation for one last midnight mass. He promised them ascension, a final tearing of the veil. Not a single person who walked into that church was ever seen again. A search party arrived days later to a scene of chilling stillness. Carriages were still hitched, and half-eaten meals were left on tables in the nearby village. Inside the church, everything was in its place, except for the people. The only clue, scrawled in what was said to be blood upon the high altar, was a Latin phrase: "Velum inter mundos sissum est." The veil between worlds is torn. The story goes that the authorities were so terrified, the Vatican itself sent a special team. They didn't tear the church down. They buried it alive. The doors were bricked over, the windows were filled with concrete, and the entire property was wiped from official records, left to be swallowed by the forest. Section 2. The Veritas Investigation. For 132 years, the forest kept its secret. The legend faded into a ghost story, but ghost stories have a way of sticking around. In early 2024, this old tale caught the attention of the Veritas Paranormal Foundation, a private research group in our story, armed with some serious technology. After months of fighting for access, they were granted permission to do the unthinkable: unseal the tomb. The mission was led by Dr. Aris Thorne, a man who didn't believe in ghosts. He was a historian, convinced the story was just a twisted version of a cult tragedy. He figured the congregation had probably been poisoned and buried in an unmarked grave. His team set up their equipment, and with incredible effort, they broke the seal. When they pried open the doors, the air that rushed out was, in Thorne's own words, impossibly cold and ancient. Inside, the church was a perfect time capsule, covered in a thick, uniform layer of dust. The pews were empty. The altar was bare, except for that infamous, faded inscription. For the first 2 days, there was nothing. No ghosts, no signs of a struggle. Dr. Thorne was starting to feel vindicated. But how could he have known that the silence wasn't empty? It was just waiting. Section 3. The veil begins to thin. The first sign that something was truly wrong came in the dead of the third night. A recorder left in the main sanctuary captured a burst of static. When the team cleaned up the audio, they isolated a single, chilling sound, a faint whisper of many voices chanting in Latin. It was the first piece of evidence that defied a rational explanation. Soon after, it was like the floodgates opened. Cold spots dropped to near freezing temperatures in the middle of the room, only to vanish moments later. Motion sensors, calibrated to ignore dust or insects, started triggering in empty corridors. The once confident team grew tense. The oppressive atmosphere was getting to them, with crew members complaining of splitting headaches and the constant nagging feeling of being watched. At the heart of the legend was the Black Vale, a relic supposedly woven from the hair of Father Finch's first followers. The team found it, still draped over a wooden cross in the vestry. When a technician reached out to take a small sample for analysis, every single light in the church blew out at once, plunging them into total darkness. Her panicked screams were the first real sounds of terror. When the emergency lights flickered back on, she was huddled in a corner, claiming she had felt dozens of cold hands touching her in the dark. Dr. Thorne tried to write it off as a power surge combined with a panic attack, but you can hear the doubt creeping into his own audio log from that night. He recorded himself saying, "The emotional contagion in this place is potent, or perhaps it's not contagion at all." We're about to get to the final audio log, allegedly recovered from the site. If you find these deep dives into dark legends compelling, go ahead and subscribe and hit that notification bell. You really don't want to miss what we're digging up next. Section 4. The Final Mass. The team's investigation was set to end on Halloween night, 2024. The 132nd anniversary of the original disappearance. Pressured by the strange evidence, Dr. Thorne agreed to let his lead psychic investigator hold a vigil at the altar. They wanted to ask one simple question: what happened here? At precisely midnight, it happened. Every piece of their modern equipment died at once. The command center went dark. The cameras cut out. All that was left was Dr. Thorne's personal battery-operated audio recorder, and it kept rolling. This is supposedly the last thing it ever recorded. There's a burst of static, then Thorne's voice, tight with strain. "Thorne, audio log, October 31st. Everything's dead. All power. What is that sound?" A low, deep bell begins to toll, impossibly close. It tolls slowly, mournfully. That's not possible," Thorne says. "The bell tower is empty. The bell was removed a century ago." The tolling continues, but now it's joined by that same Latin chanting, growing louder, more fervent. "My God, the pews," he whispers. They're not empty anymore. I see outlines, shadows. They're sitting in the pews, all of them. There must be over 100. They're all looking at the altar, at us." A new voice, a woman's terrified scream, cuts through. "Eris, the veil! Look at the veil! Thorne's breathing becomes ragged, panicked. It's moving. It's not hanging. It's floating. It's expanding, becoming a doorway of pure black. The chanting crescendos. The bell tolls faster, more violently. A storm of screams and whispers erupts. They're standing up! Oh God, they're turning around! They don't have faces. They're just shadows, voids. They're coming towards us. Get back! Get back! The final sound is a deafening roar of static, and what sounds like 1,000 voices whispering a single, final phrase before the recording abruptly ends. Sortes qui facit. You have sealed your fate. Conclusion. According to the tale, when a state police recovery team entered the Black Vale Church 12 hours later, they found the team's expensive equipment strewn across the floor, completely inert. The church was, once again, silent and empty. All 4 members of the Veritas Paranormal Foundation team, including Dr. Aris Thorne, had vanished without a trace, just like the 127 parishioners before them. They found only one new thing. Scratched into the stone floor in front of the altar, right where Dr. Thorne's recorder was found, was a new, freshly carved Latin phrase, Nunc nos liberati sumus. Now, we are free. The story ends with the church being permanently sealed, this time with concrete and steel, and surrounded by a federal exclusion zone. But it leaves us with terrifying questions. They didn't just reopen a haunted church. What did they unleash? And if the tormented souls of the Black Vale congregation are now free, where have they gone? What do you think happened to the Veritas team? Let us know your theories in the comments below. And be careful what legends you go digging into. From the blood-stained trees of the Appalachians to the silent forests of the West, the wilderness holds its secrets. These accounts aren't just spooky stories. They're reminders of how small we are when we step off the pavement and into a world that plays by older, wilder rules. They remind us that there are still dark places we don't understand, where silence can be a warning, and where something might just knock back from the shadows. What would you have done? Have you ever seen something in the woods you couldn't explain? Let us know in the comments. Until next time, stay safe out there.